The ballroom was a glittering cage, 200 pairs of eyes locked on me as my mother's hand cracked across my cheek, sending my diamond earrings skittering across the marble floor. It wasn't just a slap. It was 32 years of dismissal, of being the daughter who was never enough, exploding in one public moment at my sister's wedding. But when Marcus Chen, the CEO who owned 40% of my father's company, walked through those doors, my mother's scream echoed louder than her strike, and the power in that room shifted forever. Hey there, friends. I'm your storyteller for Revenge Emmy, and this is the tale of Madison Hayes, a woman who turned a family's betrayal into a masterclass in standing her ground. Picture a wedding where love was supposed to shine, but instead, greed and entitlement took center stage. Madison's story isn't just about a slap or a penthouse. It's about what happens when you refuse to let those closest to you steal your worth. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into a saga of ambition, betrayal, and the kind of victory that makes headlines. If you're ready for a story that'll make your blood boil and your heart soar, hit that like button, drop your location in the comments, and let's get started. Madison Hayes wasn't just another guest at her sister Sophia's wedding. She was the invisible architect of its perfection. At 32, she was the vice president of development at Hayes Capital, a titan in the financial world, overseeing multi-million-dollar deals across the Asia-Pacific. But to her family, she was just Madison. Too ambitious, too independent, too wrong. Her navy silk dress, elegant and understated, drew her mother's first jab of the day. "Couldn't you have chosen something more feminine?" Carol sneered, her eyes flicking over Madison like she was a spreadsheet that didn't add up. Sophia, the bride, was the golden child, the one who glowed in her gown, while Madison's $50,000 contribution to the wedding went unmentioned, as always. The Grand View Hotel's ballroom was a vision. White roses, gold accents, a chandelier casting a warm glow over 200 guests. Madison had arrived at 8 a.m., 3 hours early, to ensure every detail was flawless. She adjusted crooked centerpieces, checked the chaotic seating chart, and bit her tongue when her father, Richard, warned her not to reorganize everything like you always do. The seating was a mess. Divorced couples next to each other, business rivals sharing bread rolls, but pointing it out would only paint her as the difficult one. Again, her family's whispers followed her like a shadow. "Still no ring on Madison's finger," Aunt Sally chirped, as if singlehood at 32 was a terminal illness. "She's too picky," Carol added, her tone dripping with pity. Cousin Derek's smirk cut deeper. "Maybe if you spent less time in boardrooms and more time in normal rooms, you'd have a +1. The laughter stung, but Madison kept her composure, her hands steady as she straightened another centerpiece. She wanted to scream that she'd dated 3 men this year, each one intimidated by her success. She wanted to show them the architectural digest feature on her 4,500 square foot penthouse, bought in cash after closing a $40 million deal in Singapore. But she didn't. Not yet. Her phone buzzed with a message from her building's concierge about a delivery to her penthouse, the one her family dismissed as a cozy little apartment. Uncle Tom's patronizing tone echoed, "There's no shame in living within your means, kiddo." Sophia's tinkling laugh followed. Madison's learning to be realistic. Realistic. The irony was almost poetic. That penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and city skyline views, was proof of a decade of 80-hour weeks, red-eye flights, and deals that reshaped markets. It was her sanctuary, her triumph, and they wanted to take it. As the ceremony unfolded, Madison stood by the window, watching the city where her penthouse towered above it all. Her mother's voice carried across the ballroom, gushing about Sophia's grace, her teaching degree, her charity work. "She's everything a mother could want," Carol said, never once mentioning Madison. The $50,000 Madison had wired for the wedding, the magazine features she'd secured, the honeymoon suite upgrade, none of it mattered. To them, she was invisible, the daughter who existed only when they needed something. Then she overheard it. Richard's low whisper to Carol, "After the toast, we'll make the announcement about the penthouse." Carol's reply was a knife. She won't have a choice. Not in front of everyone. Madison's blood ran cold. This wasn't a spontaneous gift. It was an ambush, a calculated move to corner her into surrendering her home. Carol's next words sealed it. What does she need a penthouse for? It's not like she has a family to fill it. The cruelty wasn't new, but its precision cut deeper than ever. Madison wasn't just the overlooked daughter. She was the family ATM, expected to hand over her success to prop up Sophia's fairy tale. If you've ever felt like your family sees you as a resource instead of a person, drop "I see you" in the comments below. This moment, this betrayal, is where Madison's story takes a turn. Stay with us on Revenge MI, because what happens next is where the trap backfires. The reception was a swirl of champagne flutes and forced smiles when Richard stood, tapping his glass with a spoon. The band stopped and 200 guests turned to him. "Before we continue celebrating," he began, his voice booming, "Carol and I want to give Sophia and Brian something special." Madison's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming, but the audacity of it still shocked her. "Family means everything to us," Richard continued, his eyes on Sophia. "That's why we're thrilled to announce that Madison has graciously agreed to give Sophia her city penthouse as a wedding gift." The room erupted in applause. Sophia's practiced surprise was Oscar-worthy, her hands pressed to her chest. "Oh my God, Madison, are you serious? The penthouse?" She gushed into the microphone. Brian grinned, wrapping an arm around her. Every eye turned to Madison, who stood frozen, her champagne glass trembling slightly. The setup was perfect. Public pressure, emotional manipulation, and the expectation that she'd play the generous sister in front of her professional network, clients, and boss's wife. "Madison, come up here," Richard called, waving her forward. "Let's have the whole family together for this special moment." The applause grew louder, tears of joy in the crowd. But Madison saw the truth. This was an assassination of her autonomy. She set down her glass and stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "I'm sorry." "What?" Richard's smile faltered. "Your penthouse, sweetheart." "For Sophia and Brian." "This wasn't discussed with me," Madison said, her tone professional but firm. Whispers rippled through the room. "Don't be selfish on your sister's day," Richard said into the microphone, ensuring everyone heard. Carol grabbed it next. "It's a wedding gift from the family." "It's my property," Madison stated, "and I haven't agreed to anything." The room buzzed with gasps and murmurs. "How could she?" someone whispered. "So selfish," another hissed. Sophia's eyes welled with tears. "Madison, I thought you'd want me to be happy." "Your happiness doesn't require my home, Sophia," Madison replied. "It's just a property," Richard boomed. "You can buy another one." "Then you buy her one," Madison shot back. The gasps grew louder. Someone clutched their pearls. The wedding photographer's camera clicked furiously, capturing every moment. Mom descended from the head table, her beaded gown glinting like armor. "Madison Hayes," she hissed into the microphone, "you will not ruin this day. You will not embarrass this family." "I'm not the one creating a scene, Mother," Madison said. "We gave you everything," Carol spat. "You ungrateful." "No," Madison cut her off. "You gave Sophia everything. I earned what I have." The crowd stirred, some shouting support for Sophia, others falling silent. Carol's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and humiliation. "You will do this," she whispered, the microphone catching every word. "Or so help me." "Or what?" Madison asked, genuinely curious. Carol's hand flew, connecting with Madison's cheek in a crack that echoed through the ballroom's acoustics. The diamond earring, a gift Madison bought herself after the Singapore deal, flew off, hitting the marble floor with a delicate ping. The room froze. 200 guests, waitstaff, even the children at table 15 held their breath. Carol's hand hung in the air, her face a mix of defiance and horror. The microphone amplified her ragged breathing. Madison didn't flinch. She walked to the earring, picked it up, and put it back on, her heels clicking in the silence. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady. "Congratulations, Sophia. I hope your marriage brings you joy." She grabbed her clutch and walked toward the exit, not rushing, just moving with the calm of a woman who'd faced worse in boardrooms. Behind her, chaos erupted. Voices rising, chairs scraping, Sophia sobbing. Madison didn't stop. She pulled out her phone and called Marcus Chen. "Green light," she said. "Execute the contingency." If you're raging at Carol's audacity or cheering for Madison's composure, drop "Boundaries Matter" in the comments. This is Revenge Emmy, and the real fireworks are about to begin. Subscribe and hit that bell for the next part. 45 minutes later, Madison stood in her penthouse, an ice pack against her cheek, staring out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with notifications. The slap was already a GIF. The live stream shared 500 times. Brian's brother had broadcast the entire disaster on Facebook Live, and now the internet was ablaze. But Madison didn't care about viral fame. She cared about what was happening back in that ballroom. Marcus Chen, the CEO of Hayes Capital and her mentor, walked into the Grand View Hotel like a storm in a $10,000 Armani suit. Two lawyers flanked him, briefcases in hand. Richard, Madison's father, had been trying to secure a meeting with Marcus for 6 months, unaware that the man who owned 40% of his company was Madison's boss. Marcus's text came through. "Richard just saw me." His face went white. "Then your mother is screaming." Madison could picture it. Marcus striding into the ballroom, his presence commanding silence. Richard's panic as he recognized the man who held his company's future. Carol's shrieks as the power dynamic flipped. Brian's brother called Madison, whispering, "Your dad looks like he's about to pass out. This Chinese guy in a suit just said your name and something about partnership agreements. Who is this guy?" "Someone who believes in protecting his investments," Madison replied, ending the call. Marcus's voice came through her phone on speaker, addressing the stunned guests. "I need to clarify something for everyone present. Madison Hayes is not just some employee at my company. She's our vice president of development, managing our entire Asia-Pacific expansion." Gasps echoed. "The Singapore deal that netted us $40 million? Madison led that. The Tokyo office? Madison built it. The Samsung partnership your company wanted, Richard? Madison negotiated it." "You're lying," Carol shrieked. "You're lying," Carol shrieked. "Mrs. Hayes, your daughter is one of the most valuable executives in this city," Marcus said. "The penthouse you tried to take was part of her compensation package, protected by clauses that activate when someone attempts coercion. Like what happened tonight, viewed 20,000 times on a live stream." Richard's voice cracked. "This is family business." "The moment you made it public, you made it my business," Marcus shot back. "As a 40% shareholder in your company, Richard, I'm concerned about your judgment. Allowing your wife to assault your daughter raises questions about your leadership." Madison listened, her heart steady. Marcus laid out the shareholder agreement, page 47, clause 15.3, moral turpitude and conduct unbecoming. "You have 48 hours to issue a public apology to Madison, acknowledging her achievements and her right to her property, or I call an emergency board meeting. With my 40% and the Jensen Trust's 15%, do the math." Carol's hysteria peaked. "This is extortion." "No, Mrs. Hayes, extortion was demanding your daughter's property in front of 200 witnesses. This is consequence management," Madison spoke up. "I'm here, Marcus." "Would you like to press charges for assault?" he asked. The ballroom held its breath. Madison paused, then said, "I'm protecting my assets and my dignity. If your behavior threatens Marcus's investment, that's on you." Marcus closed with a warning. "Richard, Carol, 48 hours. Madison's penthouse remains hers, untouched, uncontested. Any further manipulation will result in legal action." The call ended. Madison stood in her penthouse, the city sparkling below. For the first time in 32 years, she felt free. Drop "justice served" in the comments if you're cheering for Madison's victory. This is Revenge Emmy, and we're not done yet. Hit subscribe and stay tuned for the fallout. The livestream exploded, trending on 3 platforms with headlines like "Entitled Parents Demand Daughter's $2 million Penthouse at Wedding." By Monday, Richard's company had lost 6 major contracts, including a $3 million deal with Williams Logistics. "I don't do business with people who hit their children," Sarah Williams wrote. Brian's family canceled the Bali honeymoon, demanding counseling before proceeding with Sophia's marriage. Guests left the wedding early, and Carol reportedly fainted when she realized Marcus was Madison's boss. Richard's public apology came at the 47th hour, stiff and lawyer drafted. "I apologize to my daughter Madison for my inappropriate behavior. I acknowledge her professional achievements and her right to her property." Carol refused to apologize, instead posting a social media rant calling Madison ungrateful and corrupted by corporate culture. It backfired, with thousands of comments identifying her as a narcissist. Sophia's marriage crumbled after 4 months. Counseling exposed her entitlement, and Brian's family walked away. She texted Madison, "You ruined my life." Madison replied, "I got what I earned." There's a difference. Madison's company promoted her to Senior VP of Global Operations with a 40% raise and stock options. She donated her bonus to a women's shelter, a nod to those escaping toxic families. Her penthouse remained her sanctuary, its windows a daily reminder of her hard-won peace. The extended family split. Some sided with Richard and Carol, others reached out to Madison with their own stories of being scapegoated. Brian apologized. "I didn't know about the ambush. That was assault, plain and simple." Even cousin Derek admitted, "I didn't know they treated you like that all the time." Madison blocked her immediate family, changed her locks, and threw herself into her new role, managing teams across 12 countries. Marcus became the mentor her father never was. "The best revenge is a life well lived without them," he said over coffee. His daughters looked up to Madison, calling her proof that women don't have to shrink for anyone. If you've ever had to cut toxic family ties, comment "chosen family" below. This is Revenge Emmy, and Madison's story isn't over. Subscribe for the final chapter. 6 months later, Madison stood in her penthouse, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. Her Forbes 40 Under 40 feature celebrated her Asia-Pacific success, omitting the wedding drama. Richard's company limped along, downsized and humbled. He'd started therapy, a small step too late. Carol clung to her victim narrative, but the world had seen the video. Sophia's divorce was final, her entitlement laid bare. Madison's real family became her team at Hayes Capital. Marcus's wife invited her to family dinners, where his daughters admired her strength. The penthouse, once a battleground, was now her haven. Every morning, she toasted to the peace she'd fought for, the life she'd built without needing anyone's approval. She sent Sophia one last gift, a certificate for family therapy. Sophia called it insulting. Madison replied, "It's necessary," then blocked her. Her doorman, James, summed it up. "Family isn't always family, Miss Hayes." Madison learned that blood doesn't make family, respect does. Her success wasn't owed to those who never supported her. Her boundaries, her peace, her life, they were hers, earned through years of battles no one saw. And in that penthouse with the city at her feet, she was finally free. Wow, what a ride. If Madison's story hit you in the gut, if you've ever had to stand up to family who tried to take what's yours, drop "boundaries matter" in the comments below. Share your own stories of choosing self-respect over toxic expectations. Your voice could inspire someone watching right now. This is Revenge Emmy, where we celebrate the strength it takes to say no and mean it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more stories of triumph over betrayal. Got questions about Madison's journey or how she turned the tables? Ask away in the comments and let's keep the conversation going. Where are you watching from? Drop your location and local time below. Until next time, remember, your peace is worth fighting for. Act 6. The Seeds of Defiance. To understand the audacity of Madison Hayes' family demanding her $2 million penthouse at her sister's wedding, we need to go back to the beginning, where a girl learned she'd never be her family's star, but chose to shine anyway. Madison's strength wasn't forged in that glittering ballroom. It was built in a childhood where she was always the shadow, her every step a quiet rebellion against a script that didn't include her. This is the story of how those early years shaped a woman who refused to break, turning invisibility into her greatest weapon. Madison grew up in a polished suburban home, a stage for her parents' carefully curated image. Carol, her mother, was a former beauty queen who lived for perfection. Perfect dinners, perfect daughters, perfect legacy. Richard, her father, was an executive who saw his family as props in his climb to power. Their youngest, Sophia, was cast as the lead from the start. Sweet, pliable, the daughter who fit their mold like a glove. Madison, 2 years older, was the misfit, always rewriting her role. At 8, Madison was already too much. She'd sneak her father's Wall Street Journal while Sophia played with dolls, asking questions about markets that earned her Carol's scowl. "Why can't you act like a normal girl?" her mother would snap, brushing Sophia's curls. Richard was just as harsh. "Don't get too big for your britches, Madison," he'd say when she brought home math awards, as if ambition was a defect. Sophia's crayon drawings and angelic smile got endless praise, while Madison's achievements were footnotes. By middle school, the divide was a chasm. Madison dominated science fairs and essay contests, her trophies piling up unnoticed. At family gatherings, relatives fawned over Sophia's dance recitals, while Madison's straight A's drew shrugs. "She's too intense," her grandmother would mutter, as if it were a curse. "Sophia's the one with heart," Aunt Patricia added, handing Sophia extra pie. Madison learned to hide her victories, but each slight fueled a fire she was only beginning to understand. The turning point came at 14, during a family dinner she'd never forget. Madison had just been accepted into a prestigious summer leadership program, beating out 500 applicants. She waited all evening to share, but the talk stayed on Sophia's new ballet costume. Finally, she spoke. "I got into the leadership program." Carol's distracted, "That's nice, dear," was a slap in itself. Richard added, "Don't let it distract you from chores." Later, clearing the table, Madison overheard Carol on the phone. "Sophia's our light, but Madison's so hard to love." The words cut deep, but they sparked a vow. Madison would build a life where no one could erase her. If you've ever been the too much kid, the one who didn't fit the family mold, drop "I see you" in the comments. Madison's early battles are the roots of her epic comeback. Let's keep unraveling her story.
College was Madison's escape, a chance to rewrite her story without her family's script. She chose Wharton, turning down a closer state school to put 200 miles between her and her parents' expectations. At 18, she stepped onto campus with nothing but a scholarship, a laptop, and a fire in her gut. While Sophia stayed local, studying education and basking in family visits, Madison dove into finance, economics, and late-night study sessions. She worked 2 part-time jobs, tutoring and waitressing, to cover what her scholarship didn't, refusing her parents' half-hearted offers of help. "We're saving for Sophia's wedding fund," Carol explained once, as if Madison's education was a luxury. Her sophomore year, Madison landed an internship at a small investment firm. It was grunt work, spreadsheets, coffee runs, but she soaked up every detail, learning how markets moved, how deals were struck. Her boss, a gruff ex-Wall Street trader named Linda, saw her potential. "You've got a brain for this, kid," Linda said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." It was the first time an adult had seen Madison for who she was, not who she wasn't. That summer, she closed her first deal, a small merger that earned her a bonus and a glowing recommendation. She sent half the bonus home, thinking it might finally earn her a nod from Richard. Instead, he called to say, "Nice work, but don't let it go to your head. Sophia's struggling with her finals. Maybe you could tutor her."
By graduation, Madison had offers from 3 top firms, but she chose Hayes Capital, a rising star in the industry because of Marcus Chen. Marcus, then a senior vice president, had a reputation for mentoring young talent and taking risks on those others overlooked. At their first meeting, he didn't sugarcoat it. "This job will eat your life, Madison. You ready for that?" She nodded, thinking of the family dinners where she'd been invisible. "I've been ready my whole life." Her first year at Hayes Capital was brutal. 80-hour weeks, endless travel, and a learning curve that felt like climbing a cliff. But Madison thrived. She closed deals in Hong Kong, negotiated contracts in Seoul, and earned a reputation as the firm's secret weapon. By 25, she was a director. By 28, she was VP of Development, spearheading the Asia-Pacific expansion. Her penthouse purchase at 30 wasn't just a home. It was a monument to every late night, every rejection, every time her family had called her too much.
Meanwhile, Sophia's life followed the family script. She graduated with a teaching degree, got engaged to Brian, a nice but unremarkable accountant, and planned a wedding that Carol treated like a royal coronation. Madison sent checks when asked. $5,000 for the engagement party, $10,000 for the venue deposit, never expecting thanks, just hoping for a seat at the table. But even that was too much to ask. If you've ever built something incredible only to have it ignored by those who should cheer loudest, comment, "Boundaries matter," below. This is Revenge Emmy, and Madison's rise is about to collide with her family's expectations. Subscribe and hit that bell for what's next. The day before Sophia's wedding, Madison arrived at the Grandview Hotel for the rehearsal dinner, hoping for a moment of family connection. The room was buzzing with relatives, all orbiting Sophia and Carol like planets around a sun. Madison, in a tailored blazer and slacks, felt like an alien in their world of pastel dresses and polite small talk. You look like you're interviewing for a job, Sophia teased, her tone light but cutting. Carol chimed in, Madison, can't you wear something softer for once? This is a wedding, not a conference call.
Madison forced a smile, adjusting her blazer. I think I look fine, Mom. Let's focus on Sophia's big day. But the jabs kept coming. During the rehearsal, Richard pulled her aside. We need you to pitch in more for the catering, he said, not asking, but demanding. Sophia deserves the best and you're doing well, right? Madison nodded, wiring another $10,000 that night, her bank account aching, but her resolve intact. She told herself it was for Sophia, not for approval. At the dinner, the family's hierarchy was on full display. Carol toasted Sophia's perfect future, while Richard bragged about her charity work and Brian's stable career. Madison's name didn't come up once. Cousin Derek, emboldened by wine, leaned over and whispered, You're footing the bill for half this wedding, aren't you? Bet they'll still find a way to complain. He laughed, but Madison didn't. She saw the truth in his words. No matter what she gave, it would never be enough. Later, as she helped rearrange chairs for the reception, she overheard Carol and Richard again, this time with Aunt Patricia. Madison's penthouse would be perfect for Sophia and Brian, Carol said. It's too big for one person, and Sophia's starting a family. Richard agreed. We'll announce it during the toasts. She won't say no in front of everyone, Patricia laughed. Madison's too proud to make a scene. She'll hand over the keys like a good sister. Madison froze, her heart pounding. The penthouse wasn't just a home, it was her proof, her sanctuary, the one thing she'd built without their help. And they were planning to take it, not with a conversation, but with a public spectacle. She slipped away, texting Marcus. They're planning to demand my penthouse at the reception, publicly. His reply was instant. Clause 15.3, I've got your back. Say the word. That night, Madison lay awake in her hotel room, staring at the ceiling. She thought of every sacrifice, every late night, every missed holiday, every time she'd sent money home instead of buying herself something nice. She thought of the Architectural Digest feature, the Forbes profile she hadn't shared, the deals that had made her a legend in boardrooms, and she made a decision. She wouldn't let them rewrite her story again. If you're feeling the weight of family expectations or the sting of being used, drop chosen family in the comments. This is Revenge Emmy, and the wedding day is about to change everything. Hit that subscribe button and stay with us. The morning of Sophia's wedding dawned crisp and clear, the city skyline glittering outside Madison's hotel window. She stood in front of the mirror, smoothing her navy silk dress, chosen for its elegance and strength. It wasn't the feminine gown Carol wanted, but it was Madison, polished, professional, unapologetic. Her phone buzzed with a photo from her assistant, the view from her penthouse, golden light flooding through the windows. Your sanctuary awaits, boss. Madison smiled. That penthouse was more than bricks and mortar. It was her declaration of independence. Downstairs, the hotel was a whirlwind of pre-wedding chaos. Sophia floated through the lobby in a robe, her bridal party buzzing around her. Carol was in full director mode, barking orders at the florist and caterer. When she saw Madison, her eyes narrowed. You're here early. Good. Can you check the guest book? And don't mess it up. Madison nodded, used to the commands, but her mind was elsewhere. She knew what was coming during the reception, and she was ready. As she adjusted the guest book, Aunt Sally sidled up. Madison, you must be so proud of Sophia. She's going to be such a beautiful bride. The implication hung heavy. And you're not. Madison smiled tightly. She's lucky to have this day. Sally patted her arm. You'll get there someday, dear. Don't give up. Madison didn't bother correcting her. She'd stopped seeking their validation years ago. Richard appeared, looking harried. Madison, the photographer needs direction. Can you handle it? Don't let them slack off. She nodded, but as she walked away, she caught his whisper to Carol. Everything's set for the toast. She'll cave. Madison's jaw tightened. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By 11 a.m., the ceremony began. Sophia walked down the aisle, radiant in white, while Madison stood in the back, unnoticed but watching everything. The vows were sweet, the guests teary, but Madison's mind was on the reception. She texted Marcus one last time. It's happening tonight. Be ready. His reply, on standby. Clause 15.3 is locked and loaded. If you're ready for the moment Madison flips the script, comment "Justice served" below. This is Revenge Emmy, and the reception is about to become legendary. Subscribe and hit that bell for the next part.
What a setup, right? Madison's family thought they could corner her, but they underestimated a woman who's built an empire. If you're rooting for Madison or have your own story of standing up to family pressure, drop it in the comments below. Let's inspire each other. This is Revenge Emmy, where we celebrate the courage to protect what's yours. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for the next chapter of this epic showdown. Got questions about Madison's strategy or how she stayed so calm? Ask away in the comments and let's keep this conversation alive. Where are you watching from? Share your location and local time below. Stay tuned because the best is yet to come. Madison Hayes stood in the Grand View Hotel's ballroom, her navy silk dress catching the soft glow of the chandeliers as the wedding reception swirled around her. She'd spent the morning ensuring every detail was flawless. Centerpieces aligned, seating chart fixed, photographer briefed, all while dodging her family's barbs about her unfeminine choices and single status. But now, as guests clinked champagne flutes and Sophia basked in her bridal glory, Madison felt the weight of what was coming. Her parents, Richard and Carol, were about to spring their trap, announcing to 200 guests that Madison would gift her $2 million penthouse to Sophia and her new husband, Brian. They thought she'd cave under the pressure. They thought wrong. Madison moved through the crowd with the precision of a general, her smile polite, but her eyes sharp. She caught snippets of conversation, clients praising her Asia-Pacific deals, her boss's wife complimenting her poise, and her cousin Derek's snide remark, "Bet you're still paying for this circus, huh?" She didn't flinch. Her phone buzzed with a final text from Marcus Chen, her CEO and mentor. "I'm 10 minutes out. Clause 15.3 is ready. Your call." Madison replied, "It's go time." She slipped her phone into her clutch and took her place near the head table, her heart steady but her mind racing. This wasn't just about a penthouse. It was about reclaiming her story. The band played a soft melody, and guests settled into their seats. Sophia, radiant in her gown, leaned into Brian, whispering something that made him laugh. Carol fussed over the bride, adjusting her veil like a director perfecting a scene. Richard scanned the room, his eyes landing on Madison with a smug nod, as if she were already defeated. Madison met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She'd spent 32 years being the invisible daughter, the one who paid for their dreams while they praised Sophia's. Tonight, that ended. If you've ever braced yourself for a moment you knew would change everything, drop "Game On" in the comments. Madison's about to face the ambush of a lifetime, and we're right there with her. Let's see how this unfolds. Richard stood, tapping his glass with a spoon, the clink cutting through the ballroom's hum. The band stopped, and 200 pairs of eyes turned to him. "Friends, family," he began, his voice warm but calculated. "Before we toast the happy couple, Carol and I have a special announcement." Madison's stomach tightened, but she kept her face neutral, her champagne glass steady in her hand. Richard's smile widened, a predator sensing victory. "Family is everything to us, and tonight, we're thrilled to share that Madison has agreed to give Sophia and Brian her city penthouse as a wedding gift."
The room erupted in applause, a wave of gasps and cheers. Sophia's eyes widened in mock surprise, her hands fluttering to her chest. "Oh my God, Madison, really?" she said into the microphone, her voice dripping with rehearsed gratitude. Brian grinned, pulling her close as if the deal was already done. Guests turned to Madison, their smiles expectant, their whispers buzzing. "So generous. What a sister." The pressure was suffocating, designed to trap her in a corner where saying no would brand her the villain. Richard waved her forward. "Madison, come up here. Let's celebrate this moment together." The applause grew louder, a tidal wave of expectation. Madison set her glass down and stood, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The room watched, waiting for her to play the part of the selfless sister. Instead, she spoke, her voice clear and calm. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" The air shifted. Richard's smile flickered. Your penthouse, sweetheart, he said, leaning into the microphone, for Sophia and Brian's new life. Madison's eyes locked on his. That wasn't discussed with me, she said, her tone professional but unyielding. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Richard's laugh was forced. Don't be selfish, Madison. It's your sister's day. Carol snatched the microphone, her voice sharp. This is a family gift, Madison. Don't make a scene. The accusation hung heavy, painting Madison as the problem, just like always. Sophia's eyes glistened with crocodile tears. I thought you wanted me to be happy, she said, her voice breaking for effect. My happiness doesn't depend on taking your home, Madison replied, her words cutting through the tension. It's just a property, Richard barked, his face reddening. You can buy another one. Then why don't you buy one for her? Madison shot back. Gasps echoed, louder now. A woman at table 12 clutched her pearls. The wedding photographer's camera clicked like gunfire, capturing every second. Carol stormed toward Madison, her beaded gown glinting like a weapon. Madison Hayes, she hissed, grabbing the microphone. You will not ruin this day. You will not embarrass this family. Her voice trembled with rage, amplified for all to hear. I'm not the one creating a spectacle, Mother, Madison said, her voice steady as steel. You gave Sophia everything, Carol spat. You owe us this. No, Madison said, stepping closer. You gave Sophia everything. I earned what I have. The room buzzed with shock. Some guests whispered support for Sophia, others fell silent, sensing the shift. Carol's face twisted, cycling through disbelief and fury. You will do this, she said, her voice low but venomous. Or so help me. Or what? Madison asked, her tone almost curious. Carol's hand flew, the slap landing with a crack that echoed through the ballroom's perfect acoustics. Madison's diamond earring, a self-gifted reward from her 40 million Singapore deal, flew off, skittering across the marble with a delicate ping. The room froze. Waiters stopped mid-step. Children at table 15 gaped. Carol's hand hovered, her face a mix of defiance and dawning horror. The microphone caught her ragged breathing, broadcasting it to 200 stunned guests. Madison didn't flinch. She walked to the earring, picked it up, and fastened it back on, her movements deliberate. Excuse me, she said, her voice calm as a boardroom. Congratulations, Sophia. I wish you joy. She grabbed her clutch and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking in the silence, each step a declaration of freedom. Behind her, chaos erupted. Sophia's sobs, Richard's shouts, guests murmuring. Madison didn't look back. She pulled out her phone and dialed Marcus Chen. Green light, she said. Execute the contingency. If you're raging at Carol's audacity or cheering Madison's composure, drop boundaries matter in the comments. The real fireworks are about to start, and we're not missing a second. 40 minutes later, Madison stood in her penthouse, an ice pack pressed to her cheek, the city skyline glittering beyond her floor-to-ceiling windows. Her phone lit up with notifications. The slap was now a viral GIF, shared 700 times thanks to Brian's brother's Facebook live stream. The internet was ablaze, but Madison wasn't focused on the memes. She was waiting for Marcus Chen to detonate the bomb she'd set in motion. Back at the Grand View Hotel, Marcus strode into the ballroom, his $10,000 Armani suit cutting through the chaos like a blade. 2 lawyers trailed him, briefcases in hand, their presence a silent threat. Richard, who'd been dodging Marcus's calls for months, froze when he saw him. Carol's voice was still shrill, berating a waiter for some imagined slight, but it died in her throat as Marcus took the stage. The band stopped again, and the room fell silent. For those who don't know me, Marcus began, his voice smooth but commanding. I'm Marcus Chen, CEO of Hayes Capital and a 40% shareholder in Richard Hayes' company. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Richard's face drained of color, his hands gripping the table. Carol's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus continued, I'm here because of what I just witnessed, on a live stream now viewed 25,000 times. He turned to Richard. Madison Hayes isn't just your daughter? She's our Vice President of Development, the architect of our Asia-Pacific expansion. The $40 million Singapore deal? Madison closed it. The Tokyo office? Madison built it. The Samsung partnership you begged for, Richard? Madison delivered it. You're lying, Carol shrieked, finding her voice. Marcus didn't blink. Mrs. Hayes, your daughter is one of the most valuable executives in this city. Her penthouse is part of her compensation package, protected by clauses that activate when someone attempts coercion. Like what happened tonight? He held up a tablet. The live stream paused on Carol's slap. The crowd murmured, some guests shifting uncomfortably. Richard tried to recover. "This is a family matter," he stammered. "You made it public," Marcus shot back. "And as a major shareholder, I'm concerned about your judgment, Richard. Allowing your wife to assault your daughter raises questions about your leadership." He nodded to his lawyers, who opened their briefcases. Page 47, Clause 15.3 of the Shareholder Agreement, Moral Turpitude and Conduct Unbecoming. You have 48 hours to issue a public apology to Madison, acknowledging her achievements and her right to her property. Or I call an emergency board meeting. With my 40% and the Jensen Trust's 15%, you do the math. Carol's voice cracked. "This is extortion." "No," Marcus said, his tone icy. "Extortion was demanding Madison's home in front of 200 witnesses. This is consequence management." Madison's voice came through Marcus's phone, calm and clear on speaker. "I'm here, Marcus." "Would you like to press charges for assault?" he asked. The ballroom held its breath. Madison paused, then said, "I'm protecting my assets and my dignity. If their behavior threatens your investment, that's on them." Marcus nodded. "Richard, Carol, 48 hours. Madison's penthouse remains hers, untouched, uncontested. Any further manipulation will face legal action." He left the stage, the lawyers following, as the room exploded in whispers. If you're cheering for Marcus's power move or Madison's unbreakable spirit, drop "justice served" in the comments. The fallout is coming, and it's going to be epic.
Back in her penthouse, Madison sipped coffee, the ice pack discarded. Her phone buzzed with texts from colleagues, friends, even distant cousins who'd seen the live stream. "Your mom's unhinged," one read. "You're a legend," said another. Brian's brother called, his voice low. "Your dad's panicking." "That Marcus guy just left, and Carol's screaming about lawsuits." "What's Clause 15.3? "It's leverage," Madison said, ending the call. She didn't need to explain. The internet was doing the work for her. #WeddingSlap was trending, with clips of Carol's outburst and Marcus's takedown racking up views. By midnight, the stream had 50,000 shares, and Richard's company was fielding calls from concerned investors. Madison opened her laptop, pulling up the Architectural Digest feature on her penthouse. The photos, clean lines, modern art, that breathtaking skyline, were a reminder of what she'd built. She didn't owe her family anything, not after years of being their ATM. She texted Marcus, "Thank you. I'm ready for whatever comes next." His reply, "You've been ready for years. Get some sleep. If you've ever had to draw a line to protect your peace, comment, 'Boundaries matter,' below." Madison's fight is far from over, and we're with her every step of the way. Madison Hayes stood in her penthouse, the city lights twinkling like distant stars as her phone lit up like a Christmas tree gone wrong. The slap from her mother, Carol, wasn't just echoing in that ballroom anymore. It was exploding across the internet, shared thousands of times thanks to Brian's brother's live stream. What started as a family ambush had turned into a public spectacle, with hashtags like #PenthouseBetrayal and #WeddingSlap trending on every social media platform. But Madison wasn't scrolling through the memes or reading the comments. She was sipping her coffee, ice pack forgotten, waiting for the real fallout to begin. Her family thought they could bully her into submission, but they had no idea the storm they'd unleashed would drown them first. By midnight, the live stream had racked up 100,000 views, and the clips were everywhere. Twitter threads dissecting Carol's rage, Reddit posts calling Richard a spineless enabler, and TikTok videos recreating the slap with dramatic music. Madison's inbox filled with messages from unexpected allies. A client who'd been at the wedding wrote, "Your composure was inspiring. Let's talk about that expansion deal." Her assistant texted, "Boss, you're a hero online." 5 headhunters called already. Even strangers reached out, sharing their own stories of toxic families, demanding what wasn't theirs. But the messages from her family? Those were a different story. Sophia's texts came first, a barrage of guilt and tears. How could you humiliate me on my wedding day? Brian's family is furious, and guests are leaving early. You're so selfish. Madison didn't respond. Then Richard. We need to talk, Madison. This has gone too far. Call me. Carol's was a rant. You've destroyed everything. Your sister's wedding is ruined because of your pride. Are you happy now? Madison blocked them all, one by one, her fingers steady on the screen. She'd given them years of chances, years of money and support, only to be treated like an ATM with legs. No more.
Down at the hotel, the reception had turned into a ghost town. Guests whispered as they grabbed their coats, some shaking their heads at Carol's outburst, others snapping photos of the head table where Marcus Chen's documents still lay like a ticking bomb. Brian's parents pulled him aside, their faces grim. We're reassessing this marriage, his mother said. We won't tie our son to a family like this. Sophia sobbed in her gown, the perfect bride reduced to a mess of mascara and regret. Richard paced, his phone ringing off the hook with concerned business partners. This is a misunderstanding, he stammered into one call. Family drama, that's all. But the damage was done. The video showed assault, coercion, and entitlement in high definition. Marcus texted Madison, your father's already losing contracts. 3 clients called me directly. They're pulling out. Madison smiled faintly. Clause 15.3 wasn't just words on paper. It was a shield she'd never thought she'd need, but Marcus had insisted on it when she bought the Penthouse through the company. Protect your assets, he'd said, especially from family. Now it was paying off in spades. If you've ever watched a bully get a taste of their own medicine and felt that sweet rush of justice drop, karma hits hard in the comments. Madison's night was just beginning, and the morning would bring even more revelations. The sun rose over the city, casting golden light through Madison's penthouse windows, but for her family, it was the dawn of a nightmare. Richard Hayes sat in his home office, staring at his computer screen, where emails from key clients piled up like indictments. Deeply troubled by the video, one read, reconsidering our partnership. Another, assault on your own daughter? We can't associate with that. By 8 a.m., 2 major contracts were terminated, costing his company over $5 million annually. He rubbed his temples, the weight of Marcus Chen's 48-hour ultimatum pressing down like a vice. Carol, still in her wrinkled reception dress, paced the kitchen, muttering about ungrateful children and corporate corruption. Sophia called from her honeymoon suite, now empty as Brian's family had canceled the Bali trip, her voice hysterical. Mom, Brian's parents want counseling before we even think about rescheduling. They say we're toxic. Madison, meanwhile, started her day with a run through the city streets, her sneakers pounding the pavement in rhythm with her thoughts. She didn't feel guilty, she felt free. Back home, she showered and dressed for work, choosing a sharp blazer that screamed power. Her phone buzzed with more support. A Forbes editor wanting an interview on women standing up to family pressure. A women's network offering her a speaking gig. But the best came from Marcus. Board meeting at 10. Your promotion's on the table. Madison arrived at Hayes Capital early, her cheeks still faintly bruised but her head high. Colleagues greeted her with nods of respect, whispers of, you handled that like a boss, following her to the elevator. At the boardroom, Marcus laid it out. Madison's leadership in Asia-Pacific has been stellar, he said, projecting charts of her deals. But what impresses me more is how she stood her ground last night, composure under fire, protecting company assets. The board nodded, one member adding, that clause 15.3, genius, shows foresight. By noon, it was official. Senior Vice President of Global Operations, with a 40% raise, stock options, and a bonus she donated to a women's shelter for abuse survivors. You've earned this, Marcus said privately. And remember, family isn't blood, it's who stands with you. Back at her parents' house, the clock ticked toward the 48-hour deadline. Richard drafted an apology, his hands shaking. I regret my actions at the wedding and acknowledge Madison's professional success and right to her property. Carol refused to sign anything, her rant on social media backfiring as comments flooded in. Narcissist alert. That slap was assault. Sophia's marriage hung by a thread, Brian's family demanding proof the Hayes weren't entitled bullies. If you've ever donated to a cause that hit close to home or celebrated a hard-won promotion, comment rise up below. Madison's new chapter was unfolding, but her family's unraveling was just getting started. 2 days after the wedding, the Hayes family splintered like cracked glass. Richard's public apology went live on the company website, stiff and lawyer-approved, but it did the job. Barely. Marcus held off on the board meeting, but the damage lingered. More clients jumped ship, forcing Richard to downsize his staff and shelve expansion plans. "This is your fault," Carol hissed at him, her face twisted in blame. "You let her get too independent." Richard didn't argue. He started therapy, a quiet admission that his favoritism had poisoned everything. Sophia and Brian's happily ever after crumbled fast. Counseling sessions revealed Sophia's entitlement, expecting handouts, avoiding responsibility, and Brian's family pulled the plug. "We won't fund a marriage built on manipulation," his mother said. The divorce papers came 4 months later, quiet but final. Sophia texted Madison, "You destroyed my life. Happy now?" Madison's reply was simple, "I protected mine." There's a difference. She blocked Sophia too, the last tie severed. Extended family chose sides. Aunt Patricia called Madison, "Your mother was wrong. I'm proud of you for standing up." Cousin Derek messaged an apology. "I didn't realize how bad it was. Sorry for piling on." But others rallied around Carol, calling Madison heartless for ruining the wedding. Uncle Tom emailed, "Family comes first, kiddo. You should have given the penthouse." Madison deleted it, focusing instead on her chosen family at Hayes Capital. Team dinners, mentorship from Marcus, admiration from his daughters who saw her as a role model. Her penthouse became a true sanctuary, hosting friends for wine nights where stories of toxic families were shared and laughed off. One evening, Marcus's wife said, "You're proof that blood doesn't define you." Madison raised her glass, "To chosen family." If you've ever cut ties to find your real tribe or turned pain into purpose, drop chosen family in the comments. Madison's world was rebuilding, stronger than before. 6 months later, Madison sat on her penthouse balcony, the city humming below, reflecting on the slap that changed everything. The viral video had faded, but its lessons lingered. She'd been featured in Forbes 40 Under 40, the article praising her innovative leadership without mentioning the wedding, though insiders knew. Her role as senior VP meant managing teams across 12 countries, traveling to Tokyo and Singapore, closing deals that made headlines. No more wiring money home, her success was hers alone. Richard's company limped along, a shadow of its former self. He'd aged overnight, therapy helping him see his favoritisms cost. Carol clung to her victim story, her social media rants ignored by a world that had moved on. Sophia bounced between jobs, her entitlement a barrier, but Madison heard through mutual friends she'd started therapy too. Maybe this was the wake-up call, Brian messaged Madison once before she wished him well and closed that chapter. Madison's life bloomed, speaking engagements on women's empowerment, a mentorship program for young executives, even a tentative date with a colleague who admired her strength. Her doorman, James, summed it up one day. "Miss Hayes, you didn't just survive that mess, you thrived." She smiled, touching her earring, the one that had flown across the floor. It was a reminder she'd picked herself up and no one could knock her down again. If you've ever turned a low point into your launchpad or found strength in solitude, comment "New Beginnings" below. Madison's story isn't over. It's just getting good. A year after the wedding, Madison Hayes looked back on that chaotic night not with anger, but with gratitude. The slap, the ambush, the viral storm, they'd stripped away the illusions of family, revealing who truly had her back. Her penthouse, once a symbol of solitude, now hosted gatherings of friends and colleagues, laughter filling the space her family had tried to claim. Marcus became the father figure she'd never had, his advice guiding her through boardrooms and beyond. "The best legacy isn't what you inherit," he said over dinner. "It's what you build." Richard reached out once, a tentative email. "Can we talk?" Madison declined politely. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. Carol's silence spoke volumes, her world shrinking as friends distanced themselves. Sophia remarried quietly, this time to someone who challenged her growth. Whispers reached Madison. "She's changing, thanks to what happened." Madison's career soared. A TED Talk on boundaries in business and life, a book deal for her memoir. She donated to shelters, mentored women escaping toxic dynamics, turning her pain into purpose. On quiet nights, she'd stand at her windows, the city her canvas, grateful for the freedom she'd fought for. Blood didn't make family, respect did. And in choosing herself, she'd found everything. If you've ever rebuilt after a family fallout or discovered your true worth, drop "legacy built" in the comments. Madison's tale reminds us, sometimes the hardest no leads to the best yes. Madison Hayes leaned against the railing of her penthouse balcony, the evening breeze carrying the hum of the city below, as she reflected on the year that had reshaped her world. The slap from her mother, Carol, had been more than a moment of violence. It was the crack that shattered the facade she'd maintained for 32 years, revealing a life free from the chains of family expectations. What her parents had intended as a public shaming had become Madison's liberation, a story whispered in boardrooms and shared in support groups, proving that sometimes standing alone is the strongest stand of all. But as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Madison knew the echoes of that night weren't done reverberating. They were just beginning to shape her legacy. In the months following the wedding, Madison threw herself into her new role as Senior Vice President of Global Operations at Hayes Capital. Her days a whirlwind of international calls, strategy sessions, and deals that pushed the company to new heights. Her Asia-Pacific expansion, once a bold vision, was now a powerhouse, generating record profits and earning her a spot on industry panels where she spoke not just about markets, but about resilience. Success isn't about what you inherit, she'd say, her voice steady and warm. It's about what you build when no one's watching. Audiences nodded, some wiping tears, as she shared anonymized versions of her story, without naming names, but with enough truth to inspire. One young executive approached her after a talk. "Your words gave me the courage to say no to my family's demands." "Thank you." Madison hugged her, feeling the ripple of her pain turning into purpose. Back home, the Penthouse evolved from a solitary refuge into a hub of connection. She hosted intimate gatherings, wine tastings with colleagues, book clubs with mentees, where conversations flowed about dreams chased and boundaries set. Marcus Chen and his family became regulars, his daughters treating Madison like an aunt. "You're the coolest role model ever," the younger one said, scrolling through Madison's Forbes feature. "How do you stay so strong?" Madison smiled. "By remembering that strength isn't about never falling. It's about picking yourself up, earring and all." They laughed, the diamond stud glinting under the lights, a constant reminder of that fateful ping across the marble floor. But not all echoes were gentle. Richard's company continued to struggle, the loss of clients a slow bleed that forced him to sell off assets and lay off staff. He reached out sporadically, emails about reconnecting, voicemails pleading for family healing, but Madison kept her distance, her responses polite but firm. "I wish you well, but my boundaries stand." Therapy had softened him, friends said, making him confront how his favoritism had poisoned the well. Carol, however, doubled down, her social circle shrinking as old acquaintances distanced themselves from the slap heard round the web. She sent one last letter, a mix of accusations and pleas. "You've torn this family apart. Come home and make it right." Madison archived it unread, choosing peace over reconciliation. Sophia's path was rockier. After the quick divorce from Brian, she bounced between jobs, her entitlement clashing with real-world demands. But whispers reached Madison through mutual friends. Sophia had started therapy too, unpacking years of being the golden child and learning to stand on her own. One day, a package arrived at Madison's door, an anonymous gift of a self-help book on setting boundaries. No note, but Madison suspected it was Sophia's olive branch. She read it cover to cover, not for forgiveness, but for understanding. If you've ever found unexpected growth in the ashes of a broken relationship or turned a family's rejection into your fuel, drop echoes of strength in the comments. Madison's journey was teaching her that freedom isn't just about walking away, it's about what you build next.
Madison Hayes stepped off the plane in Tokyo, the bustling airport, a familiar chaos that grounded her amid the whirlwind of her new life. A year after the wedding disaster, her global role had her jet-setting between continents, closing deals that once seemed impossible. But this trip held a surprise, an email from an unexpected ally, Brian, Sophia's ex-husband. I know this is odd, it read, but I'm in Tokyo for work. Can we meet? I owe you an apology. Madison hesitated, her finger hovering over delete, but curiosity won. They met at a quiet cafe overlooking the city, the neon lights reflecting in their coffee cups. Brian looked different, less polished, more real. I didn't know about the penthouse plan, he said, his eyes sincere. Sophia and your parents blindsided me too. Watching that video, it opened my eyes to the toxicity. Madison nodded, stirring her coffee. It wasn't just the slap. It was years of being the backup plan. Brian leaned forward. I left because I saw how they treated you, like you were disposable. It made me question everything. Sophia's changing, you know. Therapy's helping her see how entitled she was. Madison raised an eyebrow. And you? Why reach out? He smiled faintly. Because you inspired me, I started my own business, consulting, away from family strings. If you ever need a partner on a deal, I'm here. They talked for hours, forging an alliance from the ruins of a marriage. Brian became a contact in her network, their shared history a bridge to mutual respect. Back in her hotel, Madison texted Marcus, "Life's full of twists." Met Brian, potential collaborator? His reply, "See? Even wreckage can build something new."
Alliances popped up elsewhere, too. A distant cousin, Emily, who'd witnessed the wedding, reached out. I've been the scapegoat in my branch of the family. Your stand gave me courage to cut ties. Thank you. They met for lunch, swapping stories and laughs, forming a bond stronger than blood. Even Aunt Patricia, once Carol's echo, called, I was wrong to stay silent. You're the success story we should celebrate. Madison invited her over, the Penthouse hosting its first family visitor in years, not out of obligation, but choice. But not all alliances were warm. A rival firm tried to poach her, offering a CEO spot, but Madison stayed loyal to Hayes Capital. This is where I grew, she told Marcus, and where I learned to fight. Her decision paid off, a massive merger that put her name in the Wall Street Journal, solidifying her as a force. If you've ever turned an enemy into an ally or found support in surprising places, drop unexpected bonds in the comments. Madison was discovering that when you stand firm, the right people find you. Madison Hayes adjusted her microphone under the bright lights of the TED stage, the audience a sea of expectant faces as she prepared to share her story with the world. A year and a half after the wedding slap went viral, she'd turned down countless interviews, but this felt right, a platform to inspire, not sensationalize. Boundaries aren't walls, she began, her voice warm and steady. They're the foundations that let us build taller. The crowd leaned in as she wove her tale, anonymized but raw. The overlooked daughter, the family ambush, the slap that shattered illusions. She didn't name names, but the parallels to the viral video were clear. That night, I chose myself, she said, and it opened doors I never knew existed. The talk exploded online, millions of views turning Madison into a symbol of empowerment. Comments flooded in, "You're my hero." Finally left my toxic job after watching this. She launched a podcast, Boundary Builders, interviewing women who'd reclaimed their lives. Guests shared stories of demanding bosses, entitled spouses, manipulative families, echoes of her own. One episode featured a listener call-in. Your wedding story gave me strength to say no to my parents' demands. Thank you. Madison's eyes misted. You're welcome. And remember, you're not alone. The spotlight brought challenges too. Tabloids dug for dirt, speculating on her feud with Sophia. A reporter ambushed her outside work. Any comment on your sister's second marriage? Madison smiled. I wish her well. Privately, she learned Sophia had remarried quietly to a teacher who encouraged her independence. No demands, no drama, just growth. Madison sent a small gift, a book on self-discovery, with a note, to new chapters. Her book, The Penthouse Principle, Building Boundaries in a Demanding World, hit shelves, becoming a bestseller. Signings drew crowds, women sharing hugs and tears. You changed my life, one said. Madison replied, you changed yours. I just lit the match. But fame tested her boundaries. An old family friend called, fishing for reconciliation. Your parents miss you. Madison declined. I miss who I thought they were, but I've moved on. Marcus advised. Spotlight's a tool. Use it. Don't let it use you. She did, channeling proceeds to charities for abused women, turning her story into systemic change. If you've ever stepped into the spotlight after hiding in the shadows or used your voice to lift others, drop Spotlight Strong in the comments. Madison's public chapter was just beginning, and it was brighter than ever. Madison Hayes paced her penthouse office, the city a blur below, as she navigated the trials that came with her rising star. 2 years after the wedding, her life was a tapestry of triumphs woven with challenges, each testing the boundaries she'd fought so hard to set. A major deal in Seoul hit a snag, cultural misunderstandings threatening to derail months of work, but Madison's resilience shone. She flew out, met with partners over late-night dinners, and turned potential loss into a $50 million win. That's my VP, Marcus texted, unstoppable. Personal trials hit harder. A health scare, a routine check revealing a benign lump, forced her to slow down, confronting the isolation she'd chosen. Friends rallied, but it highlighted the void left by family. During recovery, she journaled, "Boundaries protect, but they can lonely too." It sparked a new initiative at Hayes Capital, mental health support for executives, funded by her bonus. "We build empires," she told the board, "but we need to build ourselves first." Romance entered the picture, tentative but real. She met Alex, a fellow executive at a conference, his humor cutting through her defenses. Their first date was coffee-turned-dinner, laughter flowing as they shared stories of ambitious lives. "I saw your TED Talk," he said. "You're incredible." But when he asked about family, Madison hesitated. "Complicated," she said. Alex nodded. "Mine too." No pressure. Their relationship grew slowly, a partnership of equals. No demands, just support. Family shadows lingered. Richard's company filed for restructuring, the final nail in his empire's coffin. He emailed, "I'm sorry for everything. Can we meet?" Madison agreed to coffee, neutral ground. He looked frail, regret etched in his lines. "I favored Sophia because she was easy," he admitted. "You challenged me, and I pushed you away." Tears fell as he apologized. Madison listened, then said, "I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I need space." They parted with a hug, a fragile bridge, but no promises. Carol remained distant, her pride a wall. Sophia, now thriving in her own career, sent a card. "I'm sorry for my part. Therapy helped me see. Proud of you." Madison replied, "Proud of you too. Small steps, but healing." A triumph capped the year. Hayes Capital's IPO, Madison at the bell-ringing ceremony, her face on CNBC. "From overlooked daughter to market maker," the anchor said. Madison laughed. "Just a woman who said no." If you've ever turned trials into triumphs or found healing in unexpected forgiveness, drop "trials to triumphs" in the comments. Madison's path was winding, but she was owning every turn. Madison Hayes stood at the podium of the Women's Empowerment Gala, the room filled with leaders and survivors, as she accepted an award for her advocacy work. 3 years after the wedding slap that rocked her world, this moment felt like full circle, a testament to how far she'd come from that marble floor. The audience rose in applause, but Madison's mind flashed back to the girl who'd been invisible, now shining so bright she lit the way for others. "Thank you," she said, her voice warm with emotion. "But this isn't my story alone. It's ours. All of us who've said enough and built more." The gala was a whirlwind, handshakes, photos, stories shared. A young woman approached. "Your book saved me from a toxic family. I left and started my own business." Madison hugged her. "That's your victory." Later, Marcus pulled her aside. "Look how far you've come. Proud of you, kid." His daughters flanked him, one saying, "You're family now." Madison's heart swelled. She'd found what blood couldn't give. A surprise waited at home. A letter from Sophia, the first real contact in years. "I'm getting married again, for real this time. No demands, just love. I'd like you there if you're open." Enclosed was a photo. Sophia beaming beside a kind-faced man, her eyes clear of entitlement. Madison pondered, then replied, "I'll be there. Let's start fresh." The wedding was small, intimate, no ambushes. Richard and Carol attended, subdued but present. Carol offered a stiff, "You look well," but Madison saw the crack, regret in her eyes. They didn't hug, but it was progress. Richard pulled Madison aside. "I'm retiring. Therapy helped me see I was wrong. Your success, it's inspiring." Madison nodded. "Thank you. Keep growing." The ceremony was beautiful, Sophia's vows honest about learning from mistakes. At the reception, no toasts demanded gifts. Instead, Sophia raised a glass to Madison. "To my sister, who taught me strength." Tears flowed, a bridge rebuilt on mutual respect. Back in her penthouse, Madison watched the city, Alex by her side. "Full circle," he said, kissing her forehead. She smiled. "And the best is yet to come." If you've ever come full circle after heartbreak or found redemption in forgiveness, drop full circle in the comments. Madison's story shows that endings can be beginnings if we let them. Madison Hayes stood at the edge of her penthouse balcony, the wind whispering through the city lights below like secrets from a life she'd reclaimed as she gazed into a future brighter than any spotlight her family had ever denied her. 3 years after that fateful wedding slap shattered the illusions of blood ties, Madison had built an empire, not just of deals and dollars, but of purpose and peace, turning betrayal into a beacon for others lost in the shadows of entitlement. What began as a public humiliation had evolved into a private triumph, a story that proved sometimes the greatest revenge is living a life so full, so unapologetic, that those who hurt you fade into irrelevance. But as the stars twinkled above, Madison knew her journey wasn't a closed book. It was an open horizon, filled with possibilities she'd earned every step of the way. In the years that followed, Madison's career at Hayes Capital reached legendary status. She spearheaded a groundbreaking merger with a European tech giant, a deal that netted the company $200 million and landed her on the cover of Business Insider with the headline, "The Boundary Boss: How Madison Hayes Redefined Success." Interviews poured in, but she chose them carefully. Podcasts on empowerment, panels on work-life balance, always steering the conversation away from gossip and toward growth. "That night taught me that boundaries aren't selfish," she'd say, her voice carrying the warmth of hard-won wisdom. "They're the guardrails that let you drive faster toward what matters." Audiences ate it up, her TED Talk surpassing 10 million views, inspiring a wave of Madison moments where people shared their own stories of saying no to toxic demands. Her personal life blossomed in ways she'd never imagined. Alex, the executive she'd met at that conference, became her rock, a partner who celebrated her strengths without needing to dim them. Their weekends were adventures, hiking in the mountains, cooking classes where they'd laugh over burnt sauces, quiet evenings on the balcony dreaming up future trips. "You're my equal," he'd say, his hand in hers, "and that's why this works." They traveled together, Paris for a business summit turned romantic getaway, Bali for the honeymoon Sophia never had, but Madison claimed as her own victory lap. No rings yet, but no rush. Their bond was built on choice, not expectation. Mentorship became Madison's passion project. She founded Rise Boundaries, a nonprofit offering workshops for women escaping toxic families or workplaces. Sessions filled up fast, participants sharing tears and breakthroughs. One woman, a single mom like Carol once pretended to support, said, "Your story gave me the guts to leave my controlling parents. Now I'm starting my own business." Madison beamed, "That's the real win, watching you soar." The program expanded, partnering with shelters and corporations, turning her penthouse pain into widespread change. Even Marcus contributed, funding scholarships for young leaders. "You're building what I wish I'd had," he told her. His daughters, now in college, interned with her, one declaring, "Aunt Madison, you're proof we don't have to fit anyone's mold." But horizons aren't without clouds. A lawsuit from a disgruntled former client tested her mettle. False claims of mishandled funds, a smear campaign that dredged up the wedding video for clicks. Madison faced it head-on, her lawyers dismantling the case in court. "This is just another boundary to enforce," she told Alex during late-night strategy sessions. The win was sweet, the judge praising her integrity, but it reminded her, success draws shadows. She tightened security at the penthouse, installed better locks, and hired a PR firm to manage her narrative. "No more ambushes," she vowed. Family echoes softened over time. Richard, retired and reflective, sent occasional cards, birthdays, holidays, with notes like, "Thinking of you," proud from afar. Madison responded kindly, but kept visits rare. A coffee here, a call there. Carol remained a ghost, her pride a barrier. But word came through Sophia. "Mom's in therapy now." She's starting to see. Sophia herself had transformed, running a small nonprofit for at-risk youth, her second marriage a partnership of equals. They met for lunch occasionally, laughter mixing with honest talks. "I was spoiled," Sophia admitted once. "But watching you stand up, it changed me." Madison hugged her. "We both grew. That's what matters." A full-circle moment came at a family reunion Madison cautiously attended, Richard's 70th birthday, a small gathering. Carol was there, subdued, offering a quiet, "I'm glad you came." No apologies, but no demands either. Sophia pulled Madison aside. "Thanks for the book you sent years ago. It started everything." They toasted to new beginnings, the tension easing like a long-held breath released. Not perfect, but progress. If you've ever stared at your horizon and felt the thrill of what's next or turned old wounds into wings, drop "Horizon Ahead" in the comments. Madison's story shows that the best views come after the hardest climbs. Madison Hayes paced her expanded office at Hayes Capital, the walls lined with awards and maps of her global conquests, as she plotted the next phase of an empire that had grown beyond her wildest dreams. 4 years after the wedding that could have broken her, Madison had not only survived, but thrived, turning Hayes Capital's Asia-Pacific division into a billion-dollar powerhouse while building her personal brand as the Queen of Boundaries. But expansion wasn't just about business. It was about reaching more lives, healing more wounds, and proving that one woman's stand could ripple across oceans. As she sketched strategies on her whiteboard, Madison smiled. The girl who'd been dismissed at family dinners was now the woman reshaping industries. The merger with the European tech firm had been just the start. Madison led Hayes Capital into sustainable investments, partnering with green energy startups in Australia and wind farms in India. Deals flowed, $300 million in solar projects, AI collaborations in Singapore, each one a testament to her vision. "We're not just chasing profits," she'd tell her team. "We're building futures." Her promotion to executive VP came with fanfare, the board toasting her at a gala where she wore that same diamond earring, now a symbol of defiance. Colleagues nicknamed her the closer, but Madison preferred the builder, constructing opportunities where others saw obstacles. Rise boundaries exploded too. What began as workshops grew into an app. Daily boundary tips, virtual support groups, even AI coaching based on Madison's book. Downloads hit 1 million, users from Tokyo to Texas sharing testimonials. "This app helped me leave my abusive job. Boundaries saved my marriage." Madison hosted international retreats, women flying in to learn from her. One in Bali, ironic, given Sophia's canceled honeymoon, became annual, a space for healing and empowerment. "Here, we rewrite our stories," Madison would say, leading sessions under palm trees. Alex proposed on a quiet evening, the ring simple but meaningful, a diamond flanked by sapphires for the horizons we've chased together. Their wedding was intimate on a Hawaiian beach, with chosen family only. Marcus walked her down the aisle, his daughters as bridesmaids. No ambushes, just vows of partnership. "You didn't just win my heart," Alex said. "You showed me how to guard it." Sophia attended, her husband in tow, a genuine smile on her face. "I'm happy for you," she whispered. Carol and Richard sent a card, progress if distant. Challenges arose. A market crash tested her strategies, but Madison navigated it, emerging stronger. A copycat app tried to steal her thunder, but her lawyers shut it down, clause by clause. "Boundaries in business," she laughed with Alex. Personal growth continued. Therapy for her own scars, yoga for balance, a puppy named Boundary for joy. If you've ever expanded your world after a setback or built an empire from empathy, drop "Empire Expanded" in the comments. Madison's growth reminds us, horizons stretch as far as we dare to reach. Madison Hayes sat in her sunlit penthouse study, surrounded by stacks of manuscripts and video calls from eager mentees, as she embraced the role of mentor that had become her true calling. 5 years after the slap that echoed around the world, Madison had passed the torch in ways big and small, guiding a new generation of women to claim their power without apology. What started as casual advice to Marcus's daughters had blossomed into a movement, with Madison's story inspiring thousands to rewrite their own narratives of betrayal and triumph. As she reviewed a young executive's business plan, Madison felt the weight of legacy. Not the one her family tried to force, but the one she'd forged herself. Rise Boundaries had gone global, with chapters in 20 countries. Madison traveled for keynotes, her talks packed with women hungry for change. In London, a survivor shared, "Your book was my lifeline out of an abusive home." In Mumbai, a startup founder said, "You taught me to negotiate like a boss." Madison's response was always the same. "You had the strength all along. I just showed you the mirror." She launched scholarships for underrepresented women in finance, funding their education and internships at Hayes Capital. One recipient, a single mom from Chicago, graduated top of her class and joined Madison's team. "You're my Madison," the woman said, paying it forward. At home, mentorship hit closer. Alex and Madison welcomed a daughter, Elena, her tiny hands grasping at the diamond earring Madison wore like a talisman. "She'll know her worth from day one," Madison vowed, rocking Elena to sleep. Family dynamics shifted. Sophia visited with her kids, play dates turning into honest conversations. "I was jealous," Sophia admitted, "but now I see you paved the way." Richard, in his quiet retirement, sent Elena books on strong women. Carol remained distant, but a Christmas card arrived. "For my granddaughter." Small steps, but Madison cherished them. Professionally, Madison stepped back from daily ops, focusing on strategy and speaking. She co-authored a book with Marcus, Empires of Empathy, Leading with Boundaries. It hit bestseller lists, their tour a hit. Challenges came, a backlash article calling her anti-family, but Madison responded with grace. "Family isn't about blood, it's about respect." The controversy boosted sales. Elena's first word, "No," made Madison laugh. "That's my girl," she said, hugging her close. Mentorship, she realized, started at home. If you've ever mentored someone or been inspired by a guide, drop mentor's mantle in the comments. Madison's legacy was living proof. When we lift others, we rise higher. Madison Hayes hiked a rugged trail in the Rockies, the crisp air filling her lungs as she conquered peaks that mirrored the challenges she'd overcome. 6 years after the wedding that tested her soul, Madison explored uncharted paths, literal and figurative, pushing boundaries in ways that kept her story evolving. From scaling mountains to launching ventures, she embraced the unknown, proving that triumph isn't a destination, but a journey of constant discovery. As she reached the summit, the view stretching endless, Madison felt alive, her past a distant echo in the wind of new adventures. Her latest venture, a venture capital fund for women-led startups, Boundary Ventures. Seed funding poured in, Madison handpicking innovators in tech, health, and sustainability. One investment, an app for mental health support, exploded, helping millions. "We're funding futures," she'd say at pitches, her experience a magnet for talent. A portfolio company went public, netting massive returns and headlines. Madison Hayes, from viral victim to VC visionary, personal explorations thrilled too. With Alex, they backpacked through Europe, Elena in a carrier, teaching her curiosity. "The world is yours," Madison whispered at the Eiffel Tower. She took up painting, her canvases abstract bursts of color, therapy in brushstrokes. A gallery show sold out, critics calling it raw resilience. Challenges arose, a fund investment flopped, teaching humility, but Madison pivoted, turning loss into lessons for her team. Family ties strengthened selectively. A reunion with Sophia's family brought laughter, kids playing while sisters shared dreams. Richard joined a hike, his pace slow but spirit willing. "You've taught me more than I taught you," he said at the top. Carol sent a painting, her own attempt at art, a wordless olive branch. Uncharted meant risks. A keynote in a war-torn region, advocating for women's rights, security tight, but impact profound. "Boundaries protect dreams," she told the crowd. Back home, Elena's questions, "Why did grandma slap you?" led to honest talks, age-appropriate truths, building trust. If you've ever ventured into the unknown or turned risks into rewards, drop uncharted paths in the comments. Madison's explorations showed the best stories have no end. Madison Hayes sat by a campfire in the wilderness, flames dancing as she shared stories with Elena, now 5, under a blanket of stars. 7 years after the slap that ignited her transformation, Madison's life was an eternal flame, burning bright with purpose, warming those around her while consuming the shadows of doubt. Her journey from overlooked daughter to global influencer had become legend, a fire that lit paths for countless others. As Elena roasted marshmallows, Madison reflected. Betrayal had been the spark, but her spirit was the fuel that kept it blazing. Rise Boundaries had become a household name, with apps, books, and retreats changing lives worldwide. Madison's latest book, Flames of Freedom, detailed her evolution, hitting bestseller lists. Tours sold out, fans sharing how her words freed them. "You gave me my voice," one said. Madison replied, "You always had it. I just turned up the volume." At Hayes Capital, she was board chair, guiding the company to ethical heights. No more cutthroat deals, just sustainable growth. A diversity initiative bore her name, scholarships lifting underrepresented voices. Challenges flared, a corporate scandal threatened trust. But Madison's transparency doused it, emerging stronger. Home was her hearth. Alex and Elena were her world, family vacations blending adventure and rest. Sophia's clan joined holidays, laughter replacing old tensions. Richard passed peacefully, his last words to Madison, "I'm proud." Carol, softened by time, visited Elena, stories shared over tea, a slow thaw. Madison's flame extended to philanthropy, a foundation for family healing, funding therapy for divided homes. "We all deserve second chances," she'd say. Elena's bedtime question, "Mommy, will I be strong like you?" Madison hugged her. "You already are." If you've ever kept your inner flame alive through storms or inspired others to find theirs, drop Eternal Flame in the comments. Madison's story burns on, from ashes to light. Madison Hayes walked the halls of her foundation's new headquarters, walls adorned with photos of empowered women, as she witnessed her legacy unfolding in real time. 8 years after the wedding that could have dimmed her light, Madison had created a movement that spanned generations. Her story, a blueprint for resilience shared in schools, workplaces, and homes. The slap had been the catalyst, but her unwavering stand had turned it into a legacy of liberation, proving that one person's boundaries can free thousands. As she mentored a group of teens, their eyes wide with possibility, Madison knew her work was far from done. It was just unfolding. Boundary Ventures had grown into a $500 million fund, backing over 100 startups, many unicorn-bound. Madison's eye for innovation made her a sought-after advisor, governments consulting her on women's economic policies. A UN speech on boundaries for global equity went viral, inspiring legislation in several countries. "Change starts with one no," she declared, the applause thunderous. Personal legacy bloomed too. Elena, now 6, started Mini Boundaries, a kids program teaching self-respect through games. "Like Mommy's story," she'd say proudly. Alex co-founded a men's allyship group, Partners in Boundaries, addressing toxic masculinity. Family healed further. Sophia named her daughter Madison, a namesake of strength. Carol, in her twilight years, wrote a letter, "I was wrong. You were right to stand." Madison framed it, a reminder of growth's possibility. Challenges persisted, a health relapse, a fund scandal, but Madison's network rallied, her flame unextinguished. She authored a children's book, The Little Know That Could, bedtime reading worldwide. At a family dinner, Elena asked, "What's legacy, Mommy?" Madison smiled, "It's the light you leave behind." If you've ever seen your legacy take shape or inspired the next generation, drop Legacy Unfolds in the comments. Madison's unfolds beautifully, one boundary at a time. Madison Hayes closed her eyes on a beach at sunset, Elena building sand castles beside her, as she pondered how her story had no true end, just endless chapters of growth and grace. 9 years after the slap that launched her odyssey, Madison's life was a tapestry woven with threads of triumph, trial, and transformation. Her boundaries the frame that held it all. From a dismissed daughter to a global force, she'd shown that revenge isn't vengeance, it's rising above, writing a narrative so compelling that it inspires eternal change. As waves lapped the shore, Madison whispered to the horizon, and the story goes on. Rise Boundaries had chapters in 50 countries, her books translated into 20 languages. A biopic was in works, Madison consulting to keep it real. "Show the pain," she told producers. "That's where the power is." Elena's curiosity sparked daily adventures, science camps, art classes, Madison nurturing her fire. Alex and she renewed vows, a beach ceremony with loved ones, including Sophia's family, Richard's memory honored with a scholarship fund. Carol passed, her final words to Madison, "Forgive me." Madison did, scattering ashes with peace. New Horizons called, a run for public office whispered, but Madison focused on impact over titles. "The story isn't mine anymore," she'd say. "It's ours." If your story feels endless, full of twists and triumphs, drop "endless story" in the comments. Madison's reminds us, every end is a new beginning. Hey there, friends of Revenge Emmy. If Madison's epic journey from that shocking wedding slap to building an unbreakable legacy has you fired up, inspired, or even shedding a tear, let's hear from you in the comments below. What part of her story hit home the hardest? The ambush, the slap, Marcus's powerhouse entrance, or her incredible rise and full circle healing? Drop your thoughts. Share your own tales of setting boundaries or turning betrayal into triumph. And let's keep this conversation going strong. If something in the story wasn't crystal clear or left you wondering, ask away. I'm here to clarify and dive deeper into the drama. Remember, Revenge Emmy is all about celebrating those moments when standing your ground leads to sweet, satisfying justice. So hit that like button if Madison's resilience resonated with you. Subscribe for more heart-pounding stories of comeback and empowerment, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Where are you watching from, and what's the local time? Share below to connect with fellow viewers. Your voice makes this channel even better. Thanks for joining the ride, and until next time, keep those boundaries strong and your spirit unbreakable.